Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is going to be the 3 most powerful builds to use if you're stuck on a boss. I'm going to do, by the way, an early and late game one of these. Eventually, I'm going to get to the early or mid game one. Long story short, this is going to be for your late game bosses, your new game pluses. If you get stuck on a boss, these are 3 fantastic builds to take them down. First one is a new favorite, and that is the Scavenger Curved Sword Bleed build. When I started using these, I realized very quickly how easy they are to use. Now, granted, they do take a little bit of a learning curve with the jump attacks and whatnot, but once you have it down, you can get through the majority of bosses in Elden Ring with ease, and since you can put these on a cult to still have the bleed scale with arcane, you can do massive damage without sacrificing the reduction in damage that you get for the blood affinity. All in all, I still think it's the #1 bleed build in the game, and not only is it ridiculous, as I mentioned, against enemies that aren't immune to bleed, but if they're immune to bleed, because you have that ridiculous damage that builds up on a cult, you can even shred bosses like Elden Beast with it. Scavenger Curved Swords are absolutely excellent in every way, shape, and form. They're fantastic to use for the majority of bosses in Elden Ring. By the way, these 3 are the quickest for me now in order to beat the game. I actually recently found out across the 7 characters I have and 2 characters that I deleted, apparently I've beaten Elden Ring over 75 times now, which I know is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to be coming up with a build video that actually shows my opinion on the easiest and most efficient build in the game. It's going to be separate from this one, but for this one, we have the Scavenger Curved Sword Bleed build here to start. Fantastic choice for the game. Once you pick these up, you're going to realize how easy it is to get through the game with them. They are that powerful. Let's get into equipment for this build. This setup, we have 2 Scavenger Curved Swords on a Colt with Seppuku. Any seal will do. We have the White Mask for the damage boost, the Raptor's Black Feathers for the jump attack boost, Claw Talisman, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Millicent's Prosthesis, Lord of Blood's Exaltation. Then we have the Thorny tier and the Fate tier for buffs as well. So for this here, there's going to be 2 characters that are on 150, and then one's basically my main character, so it's going to be super high level. But for this, don't worry about the decks I had. I was trying different stats and whatnot. Since we're on a cult, you want to go mainly heavy into arcane, and then as far as dexterity, go for the minimum stats for dexterity. You're going to get a ton of damage out of these, and you'll get the bleed, the innate bleed, that'll scale with that arcane as well, giving you ridiculous levels of damage and bleed. Scavenger Curved Swords are great. Next up is Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. Now, whether you're going for the one-shot build or the recent Power Lightning build that I've done, which I believe I put in the description too, is how to start out for Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, it is incredibly powerful, and for me, at least, one of the easiest ways to get through the game very, very quickly. I know some people have a hard time with it. Some people say that it's a lot of RNG, but the truth is, I've beaten, I think, Elden Ring at this point at least 7 times with just the Lightning build, and not once do I recall ever having difficulty. And this was all on max scaling, by the way. I think at this point we were on, I don't know, journey 16 or 17 or whatnot. The only time that I ever had trouble was the first time that I went to go one-shot Radagon and Elden Beast on max scaling. Had a little bit of difficulty with that, but once I knew where to stand, it's a very specific spot for both of them, they went down quickly every time I attempted it after that. Really got easier and easier. Getting the one-shot on bosses isn't as hard as everybody makes it out to be. It truly isn't. If you do the right buffs, you can do a lot of damage, you can take down the majority of bosses. And once again, if you're not going for the one-shot, then it's even easier. 2 or 3 casts, take any boss down with ease. And that's why I did the Power Lightning build on my channel. That was one of the reasons why I ended up making that build, was to start out for ADLS, because that's how I started out as well. And even if you're a little bit inaccurate to begin with, you're still going to get really good damage out of it. You're going to get used to it. Once you know all the bosses, their attacks, their windows, you're going to cast at the right time, you're going to do massive damage. The damage truly does do wonders. This is one of those builds where once you get used to it, you're going to absolutely love the Lightning build. I have a lot of good feedback. By the way, I have the Discord in the description below. A whole bunch of people on there that have tried out the Lightning build. They get a ton of damage out of it too. It's consistent once you learn it. Like I said, it's a little bit of a learning curve to try to get the one-shots and stuff, but if you're doing these in 2 or 3 casts, you can do this build with ease. Let's get into equipment. For equipment, the Golden Order Seal will beat out the Gravelstone Seal's boost once it hits 80 Faith and 80 Intelligence. We had a Seppuku Sword to bring our HP down, the Black Dumpling Mushroom Crown, Lightning Scorpion Charm. We're now using the Phlox Canvas Talisman because apparently the Godfrey icon's no longer working. Red Feathered Branch Sword. Then we have the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, Fetid Pots, Boluses, of course the Lightning tier as well, for that added damage. Now this is on one of my two main characters here, and with the Golden Order seal, you can see our entire investment is intelligence and faith. If you're doing this at 150 though, go for the Gravelstone seal. I have that build on my channel as well. You're going to go for 80 to 99 faith, and you're going to get that boost too to do a lot of damage. Everything else is really up to you. You do need 20 strength for the Jellyfish shield. Jellyfish shield, by the way, is 5% more damage than using another seal, but obviously it has that 20 strength requirement. It's a little bit more weighty. Let's get into the buffing order. First things first, we bring our HP down, and then we'll proc the Black Dumpling. When you proc the Black Dumpling, you're going to bring your HP down with that the last time. So get your health adjusted to the point where you can proc basically the Red Feathered Branch Sword and the Black Dumpling at the same time by having enough low HP as well. Switch back to the Mushroom Crown. Fill up your FP, drink your tear because we're going to do the longer duration stuff. Then we're going to cast Golden Vow. This is also longer. You can fill up again, use the Jellyfish Shield, Hellish Brewery. Then last, because they're really short duration, we're going to use the Poison Pots, then go in to cast Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike for ridiculous damage. And last but not least is by far the easiest one to use on the list and probably one of the most obvious in the Blasphemous Blade. The Blasphemous Blade is absolutely ridiculous. It does insane levels of fire damage, can be buffed like crazy as well, and to boot, you heal back every time you use the Ash of War, making it ridiculous to use the majority of bosses in Elden Ring. Oh, and did I mention that most of the demigods have 0 over fire resistance? At least a lot of them do. That's another benefit to what is already an overpowered and fantastic weapon. This is really a favorite weapon for most faith users in Elden Ring, and it really is one of those things too where once you use this weapon, you're going to realize how easy it is to use and how powerful it is. It almost made it as my #1 most convenient and efficient build on the list. The only thing is, the other one has a little bit more range and does a little bit more damage that I'm going to narrow that down to, and obviously I didn't include it in this one, but yes, Blasphemous Blade, one of the easiest builds to use, very user-friendly, extremely powerful, can carry you through the game all the way up until max scaling. It is incredible against bosses. So if you're stuck, you need to try the Blasphemous Blade because it's going to make your life a lot easier using this weapon, and it's something, again, where you're constantly healing back to, which makes it even better. It's incredibly powerful. You get it from Ricard's Remembrance. It's definitely a weapon you should have. And those pesky tree avatars, well, you can completely destroy them with fire, and the Blasphemous Blade does that really well. This is literally a boss melter, and it's a weapon you should absolutely have, especially if you're a faith build. When I came to the realization that I've beaten Elden Ring over 75 times at this point, I realized the Blasphemous Blade, the Lightning build, were two of the ones that I used the most, and then recently, the Scavenger Curve Swords I've used several times to get through the game as well. Now let's get into equipment. For equipment, we have the Blasphemous Blade plus 10. You can use the Sword of Milos for its FP regen passive and for the debuff. Any seal will do. We have the Shard of Alexander. We have the Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, Dragon Crest, preferably the Great Shield Talisman. Then you're going to want that Fire tier as well, possibly the Faith tier or Defense tier. So for stats here, we're going to go heavily into Faith, and this is something, by the way, where you can do the Lightning build with this too, because the Ash of War on the Blasphemous Blade scales really well with Faith, more so than anything else. So you're going to go for the minimum strength requirement, then high Faith, and basically spam that Ash of War. If you're having difficulty or hard time, you're going to take down any boss in the game with ease. Besides, Rykard and Mog and maybe the Fire Giant, every other boss in the game either has 0 or reasonable fire resistance and will take substantial damage from the Blasphemous Blade because it truly is that good. And as far as buffing, I'm going to show what to do here for the Blasphemous Blade. As far as buffing the Blasphemous Blade, the main thing here is to drink your tear, which has the Fire tier. Then you can use Golden Vow, Blessing's Boon if you want a little bit of extra HP, Flame Grant Me Strength, obviously, because we're doing fire damage, but you can do Hellish Brewery too, which technically I think is 5% more because the Ash of War is mainly fire damage. They're around the same, though. You could do either one of those buffs. They override each other. Then you get to use the debuff on the Sword of Milos, then use the Blasphemous Blade. You'll do massive damage. And there it is. And I know we recently did our 30 and 30. This was actually something that I was already working on. It was basically sitting, I just had to voice over it. It was something I really wanted to get out there because I had a lot of people asking me how I beat the game so many times. And these were the top 3 builds recently that I've used to go through Elden Ring quickly if I need to get somewhere to do builds, to do videos, or just in general. These 3 are absolutely fantastic. By the way, the Discord's in the description. If you love overpowered PvE builds, be sure to check out all the awesome builds that are on my channel. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will catch you guys there.